Fellow Democrats, delegates, and friends, buenas tardes. I am Dolores Huerta from the great state of California and the food basket of our United States of America, the San Joaquin Valley, and yes, the great city of Bakersfield. I am a proud mother of 11, a grandmother of 14, and a great-grandmother of 5. I'm an advocate for working families and immigrants, and I'm a passionate supporter of Hillary Clinton. I am so honored to be here today representing the diversity of our Democratic Party and the coalition of 18 million people of all walks of life and all backgrounds that stood with Hillary and never gave up. This primary season, the Hispanic community participated in historic numbers, and Hispanics will be a pivotal voice and a vote in the election of our next president. We Hispanics have made history this year, and it is only the beginning. Now, I want to say a few words in Spanish. En esta elección primaria, nuestra comunidad participamos con números históricos. Nosotros vamos a ser la voz decisa en elegir el próximo presidente de los Estados Unidos. Y estamos muy orgullosos que nosotros hicimos historia. Y apenas estamos empezando. Sí se pudo. I am a fourth-generation American from New Mexico. My father, Juan Fernandez, was a field worker, a miner. He was a union man and assemblyman. My mother, Alicia Chavez, was a feminist and a small business owner. My parents instilled in me that hard work and determination was what we needed to be able to succeed. And also that we need to also put our neighbor before ourselves. Hillary's values are the values of my family and the values of our community. When Cesar Chavez and I organized farm workers and immigrants 40 years ago, it was not easy, but we persevered and we made progress. We believe that those who do back-breaking work for low wages, often in a dangerous workplace, they deserve a champion, someone who will fight for them. That's why I love and respect Hillary Clinton. She has stood with hardworking people all of her life, and she knows how important it is to keep fighting and to keep going. For many in America, working families are invisible. For Hillary Clinton, no American is invisible. I stand with Hillary as she stands with Barack Obama to take our country back. And now, Mrs. Chairman, on behalf of all women and all working families, I have the great honor to nominate Hillary Rodham Clinton, my friend, our champion, to be for the presidency of the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, Please welcome Jordan Apollo Pizzelle, one of the youngest delegates and from Colorado, to second the nomination.
Thank you. Fellow Democrats, delegates, and friends, my name is Apollo Pizzelle, and I represent the great state of Utah. I am a proud son, grandson, and great-grandson, a proud representative of the 723 votes of the great mining town of Copperton, a proud Democrat, and a proud supporter of Hillary Clinton. I am equally proud to be here as the third youngest delegate and a representative of the many young voters who were galvanized to action by Hillary Clinton. I am here because my great-grandmother, Catherine, is a breast cancer survivor who lost her coverage when her husband died last year. She's 89 years old and is currently living at home with hospice care because she cannot afford assisted living facilities on Medicare. I am here because I see our broken healthcare system through her experience, an experience shared by too many Americans. And I believe with all my heart that we must and we can achieve healthcare for all Americans. As Hillary says, no excuses, no exceptions, and no one left behind. That's why I support Hillary Clinton, an expert on and a champion on healthcare, a leader who we know never gives up and never gives in. Today, I proudly second the nomination of Hillary Clinton on behalf of my two great-grandmothers, Teresa and Catherine, both Utah residents and both born before women had the right to vote. I am proud to be one of 18 million to stand for Hillary Clinton.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Denise Williams-Harris from New York to second the nomination.
Fellow Democrats, delegates, and friends, my name is Denise Williams-Harris, and I represent the state of New York, the home state of Hillary Clinton. I am a proud New Yorker, a proud woman of color, and a proud Nana, and a proud supporter of Hillary Clinton. This election has been one for the history books. It has brought great pride to the African American community. Women everywhere are inspired by my senator, and I continue to be inspired every day by the devotion of issues that matter to my family, my state, and my community. When I am asked, would I work for Hillary Clinton again, as hard as I have worked for her during the 18 months, my answer is a resounding, absolutely yes. Because of her campaign, I and my troop of Salon 19 volunteers and many others have been personally empowered and amazed by what we have accomplished together. We went to every state, territory, and we won 23 primaries and caucuses, and we cracked the glass ceiling 18 million times. I have been a loyal and committed supporter for almost a decade, so it is my pleasure to be part of the slice of history. I proudly second the nomination of Hillary Clinton.
The next candidate to be nominated this evening for President of the United States is Senator Barack Obama of Illinois.
Please welcome Michael Wilson from Florida, an Air Force medic who served in Iraq, to present the nominating speech.
I'm Mike Wilson, and as a small-town Tennessee guy and a registered Republican, I can't tell you what an honor it is to be here today to nominate Barack Obama as the next President of the United States. The town I grew up in is one of those places with 2 stoplights, 1 church, a McDonald's, and about 600 families who are proud to call it home. I first left when I joined the Air Force and served for 8 years as a medic, much as my dad did in the Army and my grandfather before him during World War II. During my time in the Air Force, I served with the 387th Air Expeditionary Group in northern Iraq, in Kirkuk, where we did our best to treat our comrades who'd been wounded by suicide bombs, mortars, IEDs. One night we got a call that a helicopter was bringing in a team of 5 guys who'd been hit by a suicide bomber. The guy I was working on, all he would ask me was, "Where are my other guys? Are they okay?" As a medic, you just look them in the eye and tell them, "Let's get you taken care of first, and we'll talk about your buddies later." We were able to save 2 of them. 3 others died. I've seen war up close, not as a political slogan or some think tank theory. I support Barack Obama because America needs a president who has the strength, the wisdom, and courage to talk to our enemies and consult with our allies. A president who has the judgment to use war not as a last resort, not as a first resort. A president who can adapt to new situations as things change, instead of being stuck in the past. And a president who will respect our veterans when they get back home, instead of letting them languish without the medical care and services they deserve. You know, there's an old saying, if you do what you always did, you'll get what you always got. America needs new leadership in the White House, and that leader is Barack Obama. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor as an Iraq war veteran, as a lifelong Republican, and as a proud citizen of this great democracy to nominate the next President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
Ladies and gentlemen, to second the nomination, please welcome Senator Ken Salazar of Colorado.
Thank you. My fellow Coloradans, my fellow Americans, welcome to our great state of Colorado. Welcome to the West. Welcome to the West, where we're building the new Democratic majority. Over 4 centuries ago, before the Pilgrims and the Puritans, before Jamestown and Plymouth, my ancestors came to this land and founded the city of Santa Fe, New Mexico. They named it Santa Fe, the city of holy faith, because they knew that only faith could secure a brighter future for themselves and for their children. For 5 generations, my family has farmed the same land in Colorado's San Luis Valley, 250 miles from here. Together, my parents raised 8 children on our farm. We were poor, but rich in spirit. And all 8 of us became first-generation college graduates. My parents gave to us the covenant of America, the covenant that binds us together as one nation, that no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, anything is possible in our America. Just 500 miles southeast of here, in El Dorado, Kansas, Another mother instilled that same dream in her son, Barack Obama. Barack Obama's grandfather defended that dream as a soldier in General Patton's army. Barack Obama's father followed that dream to an America of freedom and opportunity. For Barack Obama, that dream runs deep in his soul. But for the last 8 years, under the failed policies of George Bush, the American dream has been slipping away. For too many American families, no matter how hard you work, how hard you try, you just can't get ahead. The White House has turned its back on you. The rural America I know is an America that has become the forgotten America. We can't afford more of the same. We can't afford 4 more years of letting the American dream fade. We can't afford 4 more years of forgetting the middle class. We can't afford 4 more years of George Bush policies continued with John McCain for 4 more years. The time has come for a president who has lived the American dream, who is on our side. A president who will cut our dependence on foreign oil and lead us into the new energy frontier. A president who will make us stronger and safer as Americans. A president who will make health care available to every American. A president who will make sure that no matter who you are, no matter where you're from, if you work hard, you too can live the American dream. That is a president that Barack Obama will be. That is why I am proudly seconding the nomination of Barack Obama as the next president of the United States of America.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida to second the nomination.
For more than 15 years, I've been proud to serve the people of South Florida, represented here today in a fully seated Florida delegation. Like so many Americans, like all Democrats, including all of us who campaigned for Hillary Clinton, whose campaign I was proud to co-chair, I know what's at stake in this election. So don't be fooled by any political ad from John McCain. No matter where we stood at the beginning of this campaign, Democrats stand together today. We believe passionately in Barack Obama's message of changing the direction of our country. We support enthusiastically his plans to restore the American dream for American families. And we stand united, proudly, in our determination to elect Barack Obama. And so I second the nomination as the next President of the United States of America. I'm a mother of 3 young children, my 5-year-old daughter Shelby and my 9-year-old twins Rebecca and Jake. Recently, Jake blurted out, "Mom, when George Bush was elected, I was just 1 year old." My children have lived their whole lives under the failed policies of George Bush. And if John McCain is elected, they'll live their whole childhood under more of the same. Instead of a candidate who votes against funds for education, against Head Start for children, against Pell Grants for college, we need a president, Barack Obama, who will invest in early childhood education, recruit new teachers, and make college more affordable with tax credits in exchange for community service. Instead of a candidate who voted against giving women equal pay for equal work and who says Roe versus Wade should be overturned, we need a president, Barack Obama, who will fight who will fight to end the gender wage gap, and who will protect a woman's right to choose. And as an American Jew and a strong supporter of Israel, I know there's only one candidate who represents all of our values, an unwavering commitment to the security of Israel, and a progressive agenda for America. And that candidate is Barack Obama. This is the change that America deserves, the change Barack Obama will deliver, not just for the privileged few, but for all Americans, men and women, our sons and daughters. Now, it's been said that children are the living messages that we send to a time we will not see. I cannot imagine a more inspiring message than the one my son will someday send to his children. I was 9 years old when Barack Obama was elected President of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Congressman Artur Davis of Alabama to second the nomination.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the state of Alabama, where Martin Luther King first took to a pulpit, on behalf of the state of Alabama, where Rosa Parks stood up by sitting down, I greet you today. I am honored to second the nomination of the man whose victory tonight takes us closer to becoming what we know America can be, ladies and gentlemen, a place where who you are now, a place where you come from, a place where all of the things that may hold you back pose no permanent barriers, where our destiny is what our God and our dreams determine it to be. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I come from the South, so we like to testify. So I want to tell you, as I second the nomination of Barack Obama, what I have seen with my own eyes. In a cavernous auditorium in Birmingham, Alabama, this past January, I heard Barack Obama tell my state that our generation can find its way again. I heard him tell my state on a Sunday afternoon that if you really want to see a politics of faith and morality, you'll find it in a politics with an abiding conviction for the fate of the least of these and the lost among us. I heard him remind my red state that there is no such thing as a Democratic way or a Republican way to build strong families, that work and personal responsibility are democratic standards too. And this above all, ladies and gentlemen, I heard Barack Obama tell my state that to sustain our veterans and protect our soldiers is neither a liberal value nor a conservative value, but an American value. Because the men and women who wear the American uniform and fight under the American flag and whose bodies come home in caskets draped with the American flag belong not just to some of us, but to all of us. They belong not just to George Bush and Dick Cheney, who heedlessly led us to war in Iraq, but to Barack Obama and Joe Biden, who will begin to bring our soldiers home. And I saw a band of people, 20,000 strong, who don't live together, don't send their children to school together, who have no history of voting together, linked in a common cause together, ready to take action together. And ladies and gentlemen, this is the cause for which we stand. An American president named Barack Obama, who will lead and inspire the free world. An American president named Barack Obama, who will stand for the rule of law, who will remember that torture is the way of the people who hate us and not our way. An American president named Barack Obama, who will affirm that terrorism can never win unless it warps us and makes us forget who we are and what we are. Ladies and gentlemen, 20 years ago, I watched the Democratic convention on a little TV in a tiny motel room in Montgomery, Alabama. My mother and grandmother and I were forced to live in that room for 3 weeks because our home had been foreclosed. The fact that I could go from a foreclosure and watching this convention in a tiny hotel room to standing before you and the nation 20 years later, nominating the next president of the United States, tells you very little about me, but tells us everything that is right about my country. My fellow Democrats, my fellow Americans, I have never seen a moment like this. I have never seen a sense of urgency like this. I'm 40 years old, and I've never seen my country as energized as this. As our next president has said, from the places in America where people hurt to the places where people dream, our time is now. Our time is now. May God bless you, ladies and gentlemen.